Thank you, Ella, very much. And a very happy birthday to your mum for tomorrow. Well, I expect we've all heard Aesop's famous fable about the tortoise and the hare. But have you heard the one about the mouse, the cat, and the cockerel? It goes like this. A young mouse emerges from his hole for the first time to look around the big, wide world. He sees a pretty animal with soft striped fur and sweet yellow eyes. Gently the creature waves its tail and gives the mouse a most pleasant smile. But then the mouse sees a terrible monster with a bright red head, a long dangly neck, and sharp clawed feet. This monster opens its mouth and lets out a terrible shriek. The mouse dashes back to its hole and into the arms of his mother, and he tells her all that he's seen. My dear child, his mother replies, the terrible monster was nothing but a cockerel who eats only seeds and grain. But that pretty creature you saw was one who would like nothing better than to devour you for dinner. You have had a lucky escape. Appearances can be deceiving. The shiny book can be awful. The old dusty one can be fascinating. It can be the unemployed spinster from a remote Scottish village who's the most amazing singer ever. It's the same with our lives, ones that are filled with exciting adventures across the world, with beautiful gardens and a list of impressive achievements. These will appear to be the most fulfilled. Those taken up with quietly working behind the scenes, serving others, these can appear to be the emptiest. But appearances can be deceiving. Through his Gospel, Matthew is calling his readers to give up the prospects of glamour and greatness and to choose the tougher, unimpressive path of following the one who was called the Christ. Over the past 50 to 60 years, British society has massively turned away from the Christian faith. If you look at the stats, you'll see a huge decline in the percentage of people with any involvement with the church or other Christian community. The Lord is being erased across much of Western civilization, and it doesn't seem to matter. Society has scarcely even noticed that he's gone. There have been few violent thunderstorms, few plagues, few reasons to think that any powers that be in the heavens might be unhappy. Even this current crisis is considered to be totally void of any theological significance. Matthew's readers lived in Jewish communities where most people had rejected the idea of Jesus being the Messiah. He looked weak and insignificant, hardly the kind of courageous, charismatic deliverer that they were waiting for to free them from the Romans. Just simply didn't fit the bill. For example, just look at verse 15 in our passage today. Pharisees are plotting how to get him, and so verse 15, Jesus, aware of this, withdrew from there. When there's danger, what does he do? He sounds the retreat. He runs away, like brave Sir Robin in Monty Python. What sort of a king does that? And then look on to verse 16. And then he ordered them not to make him known. What sort of a king says that? What sort of a king tries to hinder the spread of his own fame and popularity? Both now and then, this whole Christian thing appears to be, well, little more than a nice sentimental prop for those who need that kind of thing. But appearances can be deceiving. And so before Matthew's readers say, no thank you, and before our nation today decides to fully do away with Jesus, the so-called Messiah, Matthew would like to hear an explanation for the unimpressive nature of Christianity. And it's here in our passage today, Matthew chapter 12, verses 17 to 21. This was to fulfill what was spoken by the prophet Isaiah. Behold, my servant whom I have chosen, my beloved with whom my soul is well pleased. I will put my spirit upon him, and he will proclaim justice to the Gentiles. He will not quarrel or cry aloud, nor will anyone hear his voice in the streets. A bruised reed he will not break, and a smouldering wick he will not quench, until he brings justice to victory, and in his name the Gentiles will hope. What sort of a king withdraws from confrontation? What sort of a king wishes to avoid the limelight? Answer: the very Messiah who was promised. Jesus may not look like much, but appearances can be deceiving. And he can actually help us in any and every trouble, strange as that may seem. God's chosen king was always going to be someone who would bide his time. He was always going to be someone who would go about most of his business quietly and calmly. God's chosen king was always going to be someone who spent time with the poor and lowly, someone who would leave the company of the rich and famous in order to hang out with the outcasts and the broken. If I was the Messiah, I'd probably go for a Bruce Almighty kind of approach, using my powers to win fame and glory and get my own back on those who've been mean to me. But the promised Messiah would be different. He would choose not to use his own abilities for his own ends. Instead, he would do some other different things. You can see two of them in verse 20. He would care for damaged reeds, and he would not extinguish smoking candles. Let me explain, or try to explain about that. See, back in the day, reeds were used as a measuring device or for supporting structures. And so when they got bent, well, they couldn't do either of those things, and so they were thrown away. Once a candle wick has started smouldering, all it does is pollutes the air, doesn't it? It just smokes. What we read here about the Lord's chosen king is that he's someone who will defy common expectations. He's someone who has time for the weak and the lowly. Someone who came not to be served, but to serve. Isn't this great, by the way? We can never be too much of a failure for God. We can never be so far past our best that we're thrown away. The Lord wants us forever, no matter how frail or rockety we might become. Appearances can be deceiving, Matthew tells his readers. So if you're watching this today and still exploring the Christian faith, well, perhaps be careful not to discard it too quickly. You might find there's more to all this than meets the eye. And if you're thinking about the rest of your life, and maybe the idea of leaving some kind of legacy, well, don't worry about trying to impress, Matthew would tell us. Just throw your lot in with this Jesus of Nazareth. Get involved in the thankless task of trying to bring eternal hope to the peoples of the world. Those around you will probably think that you're wasting your time, but appearances can be deceiving. The one who was born in a stable is now seated on a throne, and he'll be back one day soon to judge the living and the dead as the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. So let's get ready. Let's try to become more and more like the people he would have us be. And let's keep trying to spread the word in the hope that those around us might also start to get ready as well. May the Lord bless his word to each one of us today.